Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Dev Diary. This is number 4. This week we got a lot of work done on some of the onboarding, the UI, UX, and a couple of new features including Goto files, which I'll get into, but let's start with the onboarding. So we have a nice little animation to welcome you into the application. A little profile creator, so you can set up your public drive, so Beaker guy, and let's choose a picture for myself here. Alright, so that's done, and then what it's going to do is get us into the explainer about the grid. Now, the grid is this term we're floating right now for describing all of the hyperdrive DAT universe, right? The grid is a global file system that connects every computer in the world. Trying to go for a high concept to describe exactly what this network is like, and the grid is what we're thinking about. So that's what the grid is, and okay, so we have a personal grid. You have a private home drive. It contains all your personal data, including your private library and your settings. You have a public profile that contains your public content, including your friends and feed. Your home drive is located at // and your profile is located at /public. Anything you put in /public is public. And finally, you can create additional hyperdrives to share separately. New hyperdrives will be saved to your private library at /library. Still working on that intro text, but it's a pretty good overview of how this thing works. And here we are in a new instance of Beaker. A couple of UI updates on this home screen. Over on the left-hand side, you've got these icons to go to these sort of system locations. So these are all places in your personal file system. So you got your home drive here. I'll take you to your home drive. You got your library, which just takes you to your home drive /library and all the content you got in there. You got your friends folder right here, which is a place where you mount all of the people that you want to communicate with. And then you got your profile right here, and this is just your sort of public identity on the network. Or you can see inside there you got your friends and your feed. So nice couple of shortcuts over there. Down here you got a couple of shortcuts to some built-in interfaces. So you got a shortcut to WebTerm over here, running as in app mode as opposed to sidebar mode. And then you got link over to the settings right here where you can configure Beaker. And then up on the right side you got a interface for creating a new files drive and a new website. Alright, so that's the updates to the home screen here. Also put in a new interface for pinning something on your front page here, so you can let's see, here's the root drive. So this opens up into your file system where you can select something that you've got stored somewhere. I could choose to pin my profile here, for instance. You could also search your history, but I don't have much history to search through. That rendering is wrong, but I'll get to that later. And alright, so that's the home page. Okay, next up we have some new tooling around file and folder metadata. So every file and folder can have a set of key values that are attached to them and can be read out using a number of techniques here. We'll start with the WebTerm command we wrote for this, the meta command. And so if we take a look at the library folder, we'll see that library has no metadata on it right now, but we can just assign a key to it, such as foo_bar, right? And then we take a look at library again, and now the key value of foo is set to bar. Let's do another one. Hello and world, and meta library, and so now we see we got another entry for hello set to world. And you can use that command to also delete metadata values, so hello-d, and now we should just have foo on there. So that's the WebTerm interface for that. We've also got some web APIs for reading and writing metadata. So we'll use the file system stat on library, and so this will show us the normal output from a file stat, but inside of there you can see there's a metadata object, and that's where you can find the metadata. The default encoding is to a string, but if you put a prefix on the key of bin:, you can actually have it output as binary, but that'll be for another time. So let's see, file system.update metadata library, and then let's re-add hello world to it. And this will just add the key as opposed to overwriting all the metadata. So we should now have hello world as well as foo_bar in there. And then one other command, delete metadata. which just takes an array of keys to delete. So let's delete both of those items, foo and hello. And now the library object should have no more metadata on it. There we go. The other interface that you can use programmatically is when you're writing a file or using create write stream, you can also specify metadata then. So let's write a file real fast. Navigator.filesystem.write foo.txt, hello world as the content, and then we'll set metadata. This is meta. And now if we stat that file, we should get out in the metadata. Did I misspell metadata? Yes, I did. Let's try that one more time. There we go. Metadata attached to it. So you want to use the update metadata or delete metadata methods if you just want to change the metadata but don't want to write the file. But if you want to include those metadata values whenever you're writing the file in kind of one operation, you can do it using write file or create write stream. Okay, so now that we've had these metadata functions, we've started to make use of them in a couple of places inside of Beaker. And one of them is with a new kind of file that we introduced called Goto files. I think you may remember from last week we had a something called a .view file. Similar thing, it's a new kind of file extension, but in this case it's the .goto file, and it's kind of like a shortcut. So the .goto files, I think I made a, yeah I did. Nice little command for creating them through the web term. So mkgoto, you specify the path, the URL, and then you can optionally specify a title on it. Why don't we use that first? So mkgoto beaker.goto, and the href will be beakerbrowser.com, and let's set a title of Beaker. Okay. Now you can see right here, beaker.goto got created. And if I double click on it, it takes us to the Beaker homepage, which is the URL I specified earlier. So if we look at that Goto file, beaker.goto, it actually is an empty file. Peek is a web term command to output the contents of it. So, you know, if I peek at foo.txt, you get hello world, which is the content we put in there, but right now, beaker.goto has nothing in it. That's because Goto files, what they contain doesn't matter. By default, we suggest you keep them empty. You could put information in there if you wanted to, but all of a Goto file's information is actually stored in the metadata of the file. So if I do meta beaker.goto, you can see the href and the title are actually stored on the metadata of the file. And I could talk at length about why we chose to do that, but I'll save that for a blog post at some point. So .goto files, like I said, they're kind of like shortcuts. And once you've visited the file, we have a screenshotting mechanism inside there that's a little janky. You can see it's distorted, it's stretched the wrong way, so we're still working on that. But the Files Explorer will show a screenshot of the Goto file's destination once you've visited it. And so they're kind of like shortcuts, kind of like a dot. .lnk I think is what Windows used for its shortcuts, but it serves a couple of purposes in here. One is, of course, handy way to just keep what is effectively a jump link inside your file system, or like an anchor tag, right? Now, if I wanted to share a link with somebody, I could do that right in my personal and my public drive. So I could do an mkgoto here, my site, and let's say my site's Google. I don't know why, but let's do that. So now, why don't we set a title on that? So now if somebody were to visit my drive, they'd see this .goto here, and they'd be like, oh, okay, he shared a link here. Why don't I click on it and see what he shared, right? So it's a kind of a simple way to publish links to things on, for instance, your profile drive, your public drive. Another example of how you could use that is you could dump that into the feed drive. And the feed drive, well, I don't know if I've introduced the feed drive yet, so we'll talk about that another time. Excuse me, the feed folder, not the feed drive. But the way that Beaker uses the .goto the most is as our version of bookmarking. So you'll notice up in the top right, rather than a star button now, what we have is a link button. And this guy is used to create .goto files, and it saves it to library/bookmarks. So it has populated all of the .goto information here with the current page. So the Paul Frazee, my profile drive, and that's the URL. So if I hit done, and now I head over to my library, bookmarks, there it is, that .goto file got written right there, and it's pointing to my profile drive. So that's how we're doing bookmarks, is through these .goto files. Let's try another one. Let's go to Reddit. Everybody likes Reddit, right? I guess. And we'll create a .goto for it and save it to our bookmarks in our private library. And there it is. Boy, I gotta work on that screenshotting code there. And if you have the sort of inline rendering mode turned on inside of the Files Explorer, you can see those screenshots. So it's a kind of a nice way to jump into your bookmarks. You can navigate over there, and there they are, listed in a relatively familiar and kind of easy to work with way, and you double click on one of them and you'll head over to that location. And I believe those bookmarks should show up in this menu here as well. So that's just the .goto files getting read out of your /library/bookmarks and putting that menu for you. And some of the flexibility that we get out of the .goto files is that it's connected to your file system in a very intuitive one-to-one way, right? There's no magic about a bookmark file. It's just a .goto put somewhere that you choose. We're trying to expose the file system in a friendly way, but as clearly as possible to people. So if I set this now to /public, right, it gives you a couple of default choices. So if I choose to share to .public and hit done, now if I head over to this drive, you can see I just basically linked to Reddit on my public drive. So it's a kind of a handy way to share links as well as manage bookmarks. And that's the .goto files. Okay, so that wraps up this week's Dev Diary. Thank you all for watching. Catch you next week.